Welcome back everyone, Coach Tae here, and we're continuing to build our foundation on how to do basic checkmates. Last time we did the ladder checkmate with the queen and the rook, which you can also do with two rooks where you're climbing a ladder. And today we're gonna do something called the scholar's mate, otherwise known as the 4-move checkmate. Now, this is the checkmate shown in the Queen's Gambit, where Beth played the janitor early on and then she lost the game. Let's jump straight into it, and as the name suggests, you can do this checkmate in 4 moves if your opponent doesn't know what they're doing. First, we're gonna look at how to do this checkmate and then how to stop it. We're gonna start off with the white pieces here, and I want you to look at the highlighted pawn on f7. This is gonna be our target for the checkmate. Why? Well, because the f7 pawn is the only pawn that's protected by the king. All of the other pawns are protected by the rook, by the bishop, by the knight, by the queen, and the f7 pawn is the only pawn that's guarded by the king. So that's going to be the weakest pawn and our target pawn. So we're going to start off with pawn to e4. And it's really important that you move your center pawns first because it opens the diagonals for your other powerful pieces. You want to bring out your powerful pieces as fast as you can. Pawn to d4 is also an excellent starting move. It opens the diagonal for the other bishop, but the scholar's mate starts with pawn to e4. Let's say black plays pawn to e5, also putting their pawn in the center of the board. And remember that our target is the f7 pawn. We're going to attack it right away with bishop to c4. Now the bishop is aiming at that pawn and we're bringing out our powerful pieces. Let's assume black also brings out a powerful piece by going knight to c6. Now, we're not going to capture that f7 pawn with our bishop yet, because if we do, then the king will capture back our bishop. We need another attacker on that square. So time to bring in the big guns, our queen. Let's use the queen to aim at f7. Queen goes to h5. And now we have a serious threat of capturing f7. We have 2 attackers, the queen and the bishop, aiming at f7, but black only has 1 defender, which is the king. Assuming black doesn't see the threat, they play the move knight to f6, bringing out a piece and also attacking the queen on h5. Now, after every move, a good chess player always asks themselves, what is my opponent trying to do? What is the threat? If you ask yourself that question after every move, then I guarantee that you're going to become a much better chess player. But now black doesn't ask themselves that question, and they're going to get checkmated with queen captures f7. Remember, the definition of checkmate is when the king is in check and cannot do CPR. Capture, protect, run away. Here, the king cannot capture the queen because the bishop is protecting the queen. The king would still be in check. Black also can't do P for protect because they're right in front of each other. You can't put a piece in between the king and the queen to protect. And finally, the king has nowhere to run away. So queen captures f7. So queen captures f7 is checkmate. Note that the bishop can capture the pawn on f7 as well, and that's going to be a check. But it's not going to be a checkmate since the king can do the letter R for run away. The king can run away to e7. Okay, now let's reverse colors and see how we can stop this checkmate if someone plays it on you. So we know the threat is queen captures f7 checkmate. We have to figure out how we can stop queen captures f7. We can either do this by adding another defender to f7 or just trying to stop the queen from capturing. One way is to go pawn g6, and the pawn is also attacking the queen on h5. So here the queen can't capture f7. This stops the checkmate. Another way to stop the checkmate is protecting that pawn. We can go knight h6, which protects the pawn, or we can go queen f6, that also protects the pawn, or queen e7, that also protects the pawn. After queen f6, if white captures the pawn on f7, we can capture it back with our queen. They'll capture our queen, but then our king will capture back last. Same thing with knight h6, that protects the pawn. If they capture, then our knight will capture back the queen. Let's start from the beginning because there's actually a pretty simple way to stop this checkmate right from the beginning. Pawn e4, pawn e5, bishop c4, aiming at f7. Here we can just bring out our knight, knight to f6. This will stop the queen from going to h5. There is a different move order that is a little bit tricky if you don't pay attention. On the second turn, instead of white playing bishop to c4, they can play queen h5 right away. Now you have to see that the queen is attacking the pawn on e5. So if we play the move pawn to g6 now to attack the queen is going to capture our pawn on e5 and attack our king, also attacking the rook in the corner. So queen h5 is attacking our pawn on e5. We have to defend that pawn. So here we can play knight c6. That will protect the pawn. And remember that white didn't bring out their bishop to c4 yet, so there's no checkmate threat on f7. After white plays bishop to c4, now threatening checkmate on f7, we can play g6. Our pawn on e5 is protected by the knight. The queen has to retreat. White can retreat to f3, and remember what I said before. Always ask yourself, what is my opponent trying to do? Because after queen f3, the queen is still aiming at f7 and the checkmate threat is still there. If we play a move like pawn to d6, we're still going to get checkmated on f7. So here the best option is to continue bringing out your pieces. Knight f6 stops the queen from capturing f7, and our knight on f6 is protected by our own queen, so we're all safe. So there you have it, guys. That's the 4-move checkmate or scholar's mate. I hope you learned something, and I will try this checkmate out to see if you can do it, see if people will fall for it, and get a feel for it. Obviously, this checkmate won't really work against people who've seen it before, but now you know how to stop it if someone tries it on you. If you learned something, please subscribe and follow along more videos. I'll see you guys all in the next one.